Warriors, killers, legends, the Spartans were feared across the ancient world, their battle tactics unmatched, their warriors relentless. But what was their secret? What made them so much more effective in combat than their enemies? Today, we're diving deep into the brutal, hidden truths behind Spartan dominance on the battlefield. It all starts with a simple fact: Sparta was not like any other Greek city-state. While Athens and Thebes balanced military with culture, philosophy, and industry, Sparta focused on one thing: war. Every aspect of their society revolved around producing and maintaining the ultimate soldier. The result? A military force that could strike fear into even the most powerful empires. But this supremacy came at a cost. From the moment a Spartan child was born, their life was dictated by the state. Newborns were inspected by elders, and if they were deemed too weak, they were abandoned, left to die in the elements. Only the strongest were allowed to live, and even they were in for a life of unimaginable hardship. At the age of 7, Spartan boys were ripped from their families and thrown into the infamous agoge, the brutal training program that turned them into hardened warriors. It wasn't just about learning to fight, it was about survival. They were beaten, starved, and humiliated, all to instill discipline and obedience. They were encouraged to steal food to survive, but if caught, they were whipped, not for stealing, but for getting caught. Barefoot, wearing nothing but thin cloaks in the freezing winters, they slept on reeds instead of proper beds. They were taught to endure pain without complaint. Punishment was constant. Weakness was not tolerated. Every boy was shaped into an unbreakable soldier, trained to obey without question and fight without fear. And it wasn't just about physical strength, mental toughness was key. Spartans were trained to ignore hunger, pain, and exhaustion. They were molded into human weapons, capable of enduring extreme conditions and following orders with unwavering precision. In battle, this discipline gave them an overwhelming edge. While other armies fought as individuals, the Spartans fought as a single, impenetrable unit. Their signature battle tactic? The phalanx formation. Shoulder to shoulder, shields interlocked, spears ready to strike. A wall of bronze and muscle that was nearly impossible to break. Unlike other armies, where soldiers could panic and break formation, Spartans were drilled to stand their ground, no matter the cost. This discipline made them nearly unbeatable in direct combat. And when it came to hand-to-hand combat, Spartans were in a league of their own. Their warriors were trained in brutal, close-quarters fighting techniques that focused on efficiency and lethality. Every movement was designed to kill or incapacitate an enemy as quickly as possible. While other armies relied on numbers or brute force, Spartans relied on precision, teamwork, and sheer skill. Even the legendary 300 who fought at Thermopylae were not just any warriors. They were part of the elite Hippias, a personal guard handpicked for their loyalty and skill. These men represented the pinnacle of Spartan warfare, capable of holding off an entire Persian army through sheer discipline and strategy. But despite their reputation, Sparta was not invincible. Their rigid training made them unparalleled in set-piece battles, but it also made them predictable. Their unwillingness to adapt cost them in the long run, and their empire eventually crumbled under external pressures and internal struggles. But how did it all fall apart? How did the most feared warriors in Greece go from unstoppable conquerors to a mere shadow of their former glory? The cracks in Sparta's armor began to show soon after their greatest triumph, the defeat of Athens in the Peloponnesian War. For decades, Sparta had struggled against the naval power of Athens, but with Persian gold funding their fleet, they finally emerged victorious in 404 BC. Sparta now ruled Greece, or so they thought. The problem? Sparta wasn't built to govern an empire. Their entire society revolved around war, not administration. Unlike Athens, which thrived on trade, philosophy, and diplomacy, Sparta had little interest in politics or economic growth. Their rigid military system worked for a small city-state, but it was unsustainable for a larger, expanding power. And then there was the issue of their population. The Spartan way of life depended on a strict hierarchy. At the top were the Spartiates, the full citizens and warriors. Below them were the Perioikoi, free non-citizens who handled trade and craftsmanship. And at the very bottom, the Helots, enslaved people who vastly outnumbered the Spartans. For centuries, Sparta kept control through sheer brutality. The Helots were routinely terrorized, humiliated, and even murdered in state-sanctioned purges. But the system had a fatal flaw. The Spartan population was shrinking. Their obsession with purity, extreme training methods, and constant warfare meant fewer and fewer Spartan men survived to adulthood. Meanwhile, the Helots remained numerous and resentful. As Sparta weakened from within, new threats emerged from the outside. Thebes, once considered an inferior city-state, rose to power under the brilliant general Epaminondas. In 371 BC, at the Battle of Leuctra, the unthinkable happened. Sparta was crushed. The Thebans introduced a revolutionary new tactic, the oblique formation, which overwhelmed Sparta's right flank and shattered their legendary phalanx. For the first time in centuries, the myth of Spartan invincibility was destroyed. From that moment on, Sparta was in freefall. The Thebans liberated the Helots, stripping Sparta of its primary labor force. Without them, the Spartan economy collapsed. The once mighty warrior state was now a hollow shell, struggling to maintain relevance in a rapidly changing world. By the time Alexander the Great rose to power, Sparta was little more than a relic. While other Greek states submitted to Macedonian rule or played a role in Alexander's empire, Sparta stubbornly clung to its outdated traditions. They refused to evolve, refused to modernize, and they paid the price. The final nail in the coffin came centuries later when Rome rose to dominance. Unlike the Spartans, the Romans adapted, innovated, and absorbed the strengths of the cultures they conquered. When Rome finally turned its attention to Greece, Sparta was no match. By 146 BC, Sparta was under Roman control, reduced to a curiosity rather than a military power. And yet, their legend endured. Even as their empire crumbled, the name Spartan became synonymous with discipline, endurance, and warrior spirit. Their brutal training methods inspired countless armies throughout history, from the Roman legions to modern special forces. In the end, Sparta's downfall wasn't due to a single battle or one catastrophic event. It was the result of their own rigidity, their refusal to change. They mastered the art of war, but in the end, war alone wasn't enough to sustain them. So what do you think? Were the Spartans doomed by their own system, or could they have adapted and survived? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more legendary history.